It is now my pleasure to introduce our distinguished panel of witnesses. Again, we have joining us this morning Dr. Deborah Gist. She is the Commissioner of the Rhode Island Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. Before coming to Rhode Island, she served as the first state superintendent of education for the District of Columbia. She also serves as a founding member of Chiefs for Change. We also have with us this morning Dr. Marcy Singer-Gabella. She is a professor and associate chair for teacher education in the Department of Teaching and Learning at Vanderbilt University. Before coming to Vanderbilt, she taught high school social studies in New York and worked with the Stanford School's Collaborative Professional Development Center in the California Bay Area. Welcome. Dr. Heather Pesky is the Associate Commissioner for Educator Quality at the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. Prior to that role, she was Vice President of Programs at Teach Plus. She has also served as the Director of Teacher Quality at the Education Trust and as an elementary school teacher and Teach for America Corps member in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Welcome. Ms. Christina Hall is the co-founder and co-director of the Urban Teacher Center in Baltimore, Maryland. Prior to co-launching Urban Teacher Center, Ms. Hall was Chief of Staff for the Chief Academic Officer in Baltimore City Public Schools. She has also served as an attorney advocating for disadvantaged youth at the Department of Social Services for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and as a public high school teacher. Welcome to you, Ms. Hall. Before I recognize each of you to provide your testimony, let me briefly explain our lighting system. You will each have 5 minutes to present your testimony. When you begin, the light in front of you will turn green. When 1 minute is left, the light will turn yellow. When your time has expired, the light will turn red. At that point, I ask you to wrap up your remarks as best as you are able. After everyone has testified, members will each have 5 minutes to ask questions of the panel. Fairly self-explanatory. It's mostly a reminder for us up here about the lighting system. I would now like to recognize Dr. Gist for 5 minutes. Dr. Gist.
Good morning, Chairman Rokita, and good morning, Chairwoman Fox and Representative Polis and all of the members of the committee. It is really an honor to be here this morning to talk with you about a topic that is truly important to all of us as Americans, the issue of educator quality and teacher preparation. My name is Deborah Gist. I'm the Commissioner of Education in Rhode Island. I also serve on the Board of Directors of the Council for the Accreditation of Teacher Preparation, or Educator Preparation, which is known as CAPE. I'm also a member of the technical panel for the Teacher Prep Review for the National Council of Teacher Quality, and as a member of the Board of Directors of the Council of Chief State School Officers, which has provided tremendous support to those of us in our states as we do all of our work, but including our work with teacher preparation. Because of my work in all of these different roles, I have an appreciation for how necessary it is that we make dramatic improvements to our current system of teacher preparation. To teach successfully, our graduates need to know their subject, they need to know how to reach a diverse population of students, and they need to know how to apply their learning and their skill in the classroom. So recognizing this need in Rhode Island, we worked closely over the past year with our partners in higher education in our state to significantly revise our approval standards for our educator preparation programs. And our board adopted these standards in November. I've attached them, and you should have a copy of those standards. These new standards that we put in place in our state were modeled after the standards developed by CAPE, the Council for the Accreditation of Educator Preparation. And there was a large commission that worked on that. I'm sure you're familiar with that work. So we modeled our standards after CAPE. So I want to tell you a little bit about those standards. I'll just talk about 5 different parts of those standards. The first is that we're focused on the importance of classroom practice, with more emphasis on partnerships between our preparation programs and the schools, the K-12 schools within our state. We want to make sure that our aspiring teachers have experiences in our classrooms with students. We want our teacher preparation programs to coordinate with our schools and make sure that those field placements are high quality and make sure that aspiring teachers are performing and getting strong feedback when they're in those programs. Second, we want our teaching force to reflect the diversity of students in Rhode Island. Therefore, we expect our teacher preparation programs to recruit, to make sure that they have diverse candidates that they're bringing into their programs and supporting all candidates as they strive to become teachers. Third, we expect our teacher preparation programs to have criteria and assessments to determine whether or not their candidates are truly ready to be candidates for certification. And that all starts with how they attract and recruit and the selection criteria they use when aspiring teachers are coming into their programs. And then they also need to evaluate their performance once they're actually in their practicums. And fourth, we expect our programs to continue to gather information about the performance of their graduates through at least the first year of their teaching by gathering feedback from the graduates and from their employers. And finally, we're going to be sharing data about and report information widely, and we're going to do it publicly through a series of report cards on each preparation program. I strongly encourage the committee to take note of the work that state leaders have done, that educators in the field have done, and national organizations such as CAPE have done. There's a lot of movement happening in this area, and we're really engaged in making changes, dramatic changes in the system, including through educator preparation program accreditation, which is what CAPE is responsible for. So I'm sure you're aware that all of our states currently provide a report to the U.S. Department of Education on our educator preparation programs. And going forward, it would be helpful if this data collection were limited to data points that provide evidence of quality. Evidence of quality, and that our states and our educator preparation programs find the data that they're gathering and reporting to be actually valuable, such as data that's more focused on outcomes. It would also be valuable if we could gather and analyze and report this data, not just aggregated across the preparation institutions, but designated by the programs that they have, so early childhood, elementary, secondary, for example. I think it's important that states retain the authority to set their own benchmarks for measuring the efficacy of their preparation programs. But the data and reports on the programs will be most useful if we're all publicly reporting those data, and that we're sharing with those we're responsible to what the benchmarks are that we're setting. We may never know how important the work that we're doing is, because it's just really launching the careers of our aspiring educators, but we know that we have to do things differently, and I assure you that things are happening very differently in our programs across the country. So I'm happy to answer any questions and share in a dialogue with the committee and with my colleagues on the panel.
Thank you very much. I would now like to recognize Dr. Singer-Gabella for 5 minutes. Doctor?
Chairman Rokita, Chairwoman Fox, Congressman Polis, Congressman Hinojosa, members of the subcommittees, thank you for inviting me to talk with you today about Vanderbilt's teacher education programs. I serve as Associate Chair for Teacher Education and work closely with faculty across 2 departments responsible for preparing early childhood, elementary, secondary, and special education teachers. In my comments, I want to first set the context for our work and then offer some examples of how we're preparing teachers to succeed and persist in the profession. My colleagues and I view teacher preparation as a larger system of schooling intended to prepare youth to flourish and work in civic life. In the U.S., this larger system currently faces profound challenges. Let me point to 3 that shape and motivate our work as teacher educators. First, a bimodal distribution of school performance, with schools at one end that are doing quite well, and a significant number of schools, typically at the lower end of the socioeconomic spectrum, that are not doing well at all. Second, a teacher workforce for which the modal number of years of experience has shifted from 15 to 1 in just over 2 decades. That means that more teachers have taught for only 1 year than have taught 5, 10, or 15. Key causes of this shift include the absence of a real career path, low levels of respect and compensation, and the sapping of motivation caused by an imbalance of interest in test scores. And third, system churn, caused by the very real difficulty of teaching in struggling schools and increasing reliance on temporary teachers, young, bright, very talented individuals who are entering teaching for the short term as a stepping stone to another career. At Vanderbilt, our goal is to prepare teachers who have the knowledge, skills, and stamina to succeed and to stay in the profession. We believe that our chances of success are intertwined with the fortunes of the schools we serve. To address the challenges I've noted, schools must become sites of ongoing learning, growth, and opportunity, not only for students, but also for the adults who teach in them. Central to our strategy, therefore, is the design of partnerships with schools that attend to the interests and challenges of school and university simultaneously. So, for example, with our partner schools, we're redesigning roles that enable teacher candidates to learn the craft of teaching by working on teams with experienced and novice teachers over the course of a year. Candidates act as mentors and tutors for pre-K-12 students and as increasingly able assistants for master teachers. In turn, master teachers develop and refine new skills as they support the development of novices and peers. By matching up our candidates' needs for real-world experience and models of practice with schools' needs for more skilled and caring adults to work with learners, we improve and expand the resources available to schools in which resources are scarce. Again, we're positioning teacher education in relation to a bigger project of building schools' capacity to serve all learners well. We're finding that really making a difference for students requires moving beyond egg-crate models of schooling that isolate teachers from one another and recruiting and retaining a more talented and diverse workforce. In my written testimony, I've suggested what this can look like in terms of reconfigured schedules and teaching assignments, differentiated staffing patterns, and new compensation arrangements. In recentering the learning of teaching and practice, we're not abandoning theory and research. Rather, throughout our programs, we help candidates draw connections between their experiences in the field and cutting-edge research on learning and teaching. These connections help candidates develop principled understandings illustrated by real-world examples that can guide their future practice. Through these activities, candidates also learn to participate in the kinds of data-informed collegial conversations that can drive learning throughout their careers. So how do we know we're preparing candidates who will make a positive difference? Here are 4 measures we're using. Before they graduate, candidates in my department must pass the EdTPA, a nationally externally scored performance-based measure of candidates' abilities to plan, enact, and assess teaching and learning of rigorous content. We want to be sure that our candidates are proficient before they become teachers of record. Once candidates take positions teaching, we collect survey data on employer and graduate satisfaction, 1, 3, and 5 years out from graduation. These data indicate that our graduates feel well prepared and their employers agree. We're now experimenting with surveys of student perceptions of the classrooms in which our graduates teach. Recent studies show interesting correlations between the degree to which learners feel challenged and supported and their achievement. And finally, we're working with graduates to gather administrators' ratings of their teaching on state-approved observation protocols. This collection of measures, combined with benchmark assessments throughout our programs, provide faculty with invaluable data to check impact and support program improvement. Let me close by calling out 2 areas in which federal policymakers can help support advancement in the field. First, we need policy leaders to incentivize partnerships between schools and preparation programs and to continue to invest in design-based research to help build and study new arrangements. Second, policymakers can streamline and refocus reporting requirements so they're targeted and productive, efficient, and fair. Data collected should be usable and useful, and reporting guidelines should apply in equal measure to all organizations that prepare teachers. Thank you again for the opportunity to testify before you today. I look forward to answering your questions.
Thank you, Doctor. Dr. Pesky, recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you for the opportunity to testify this morning. I care deeply about the issue of educator effectiveness, not only because it's my job, but because right now my first-grade daughter is sitting in a public school classroom in Massachusetts. Just last night, I was meeting with faculty and administrators from educator preparation programs. One professor made the confession: within our program, the quality of the teaching placements varies tremendously across our placement sites. 3 months from now, hundreds of graduates from Massachusetts colleges and universities will graduate with a license to teach. They will look for jobs, some in Massachusetts, some in your districts. Some of them will be well prepared, and some of them will be ill-equipped for the challenges of the classroom. This must change. In Massachusetts, we're building a comprehensive system of educator preparation strategy to ensure that these program graduates make impact with their students. The comprehensive strategy includes 4 components, which I will outline and describe briefly today. First, the first component is standards and accountability. We have new regulations for educator preparation program approval in order to strengthen program accountability. We have a revised program review and approval process in order to build a robust evidentiary base from which to decide whether a program can continue or whether it should be closed down. The second component is investing local districts. It is essential that local school districts and schools are invested in educator preparation. We require programs to report on these partnerships and how the partnerships specifically impact the candidates, and more importantly, how they impact the students. This year, we will conduct and publicly report on surveys of district personnel. in order to gather data on their level of satisfaction with the program graduates who've been hired as teachers and administrators in their schools. We hope these data will catalyze conversation and further innovation. The third component is transparency of data and reporting. For every preparation program in our Commonwealth, including our alternative providers, Massachusetts publishes a publicly available educator preparation program profile. This is a way to both invest local districts and also to provide data for the educator prep programs and the alternative programs themselves. For the first time, we're linking educator workforce data and educator effectiveness data to educator preparation programs. We will report this annually and publicly on things like program graduates' educator evaluation ratings, program graduates' impact in producing growth in student learning, employment data, as well as the survey data I mentioned a moment ago. By analyzing the data from the programs along with other data, we'll be able to identify low and high performing programs, programs we should replicate, and programs we should not continue. The fourth component of our strategy is support. We're committed to providing programs with easy-to-access analytic reports on a variety of data to answer a number of different types of questions, such as the following. Where are my program graduates being employed? Do they stay? How long? I want to shift now to talk about the federal role. We believe in Massachusetts that there is a critical role for the federal government in promoting effective teacher education programs. So I appreciate your consideration of the following three ideas. First, we need help from you in order to support and disseminate research on effective programs. The current research is really limited in being able to answer questions like, which components of educator preparation are most impactful when it comes to producing growth with students? Much in the same way as the federal government now supports the What Works Clearinghouse for local school and district policy and practice, we need a similar analog in educator preparation. Second, and this has been mentioned already by my colleagues, we need help in Title II reporting. We need you to reduce the hundreds of data elements we're now required to report on. We need you to develop common metrics, and we need you to focus on the highest priority data. Right now, my staff spend far too much time collecting meaningless data to report on Title II. There's little or no comparability across the states when we report on these elements, and the metrics and definitions are not common. We also need a stronger focus in Title II reporting on outcomes data, rather than the hundreds of input measures we provide for you now. Number three, we need to provide federal subsidies to establish new clinical models. Our clinical sites are suffering. We need funding to sustain these areas. Right now, the federal government provides subsidies to teaching hospitals in order to train the next generation of doctors. We need something similar in terms of training the next generation of teachers. Without this federal subsidy, some hospitals might not take on the task of training doctors. The same is true for our local school districts. And I can talk a little bit more in the questions about the details of that. I want to conclude with a short story. On July 3rd, 1839, 3 young women braved a thunderstorm to enroll in Massachusetts' first state-supported school dedicated to training teachers, the first normal school in America. This year, 2014, marks the 175th anniversary of the normal school in Massachusetts. As we as a nation reflect on our history of educating teachers, we have to ask ourselves now, what can and should we do to ensure that the experiences of teacher and principal candidates prepare them to promote and to excel in developing college and career-ready students? I look forward to the discussion and happily answer your questions. Thank you again for the opportunity.
Thank you, Doctor. Ms. Hall, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you. Chairman Rokita and Chairwoman Fox, Representative Polis, and members of the subcommittee, thank you for inviting me here today to speak with you about this important topic, teacher quality. My name's Christina Hall, and I'm co-founder of Urban Teacher Center. We're a nonprofit that partners with urban schools and districts to prepare new teachers. We have 231 teachers in almost 75 schools in Baltimore and D.C. Program satisfaction is high. 100% of our teachers report that our training gives them the knowledge and skills they need, and 90% of our school partners returned this year. This is testament to our value because principals pay to bring us to their buildings. Best of all, we can already see that our teachers are getting results. Last year, 79%, that's 79% of our first-year teachers had student achievement gains equal to or better than the typical second-year teacher. When we set out to build our program, we knew that holding a degree in teaching is not a proxy for effectiveness, but because of prevailing compensation systems, we wanted to offer an MED. We considered applying to become our own Institute of Higher Ed, but an often onerous and sometimes irrelevant process kept us from seriously considering it. Instead, we looked for a partner that would embrace broader criteria for hiring clinical faculty, embark on creating a whole new preparation program, and accept responsibility for master's conferral while releasing approval for certification to UTC. We spoke with almost a dozen colleges and universities and eventually found Lesley University in Massachusetts. Lesley agreed to take the leap with us. Here are a few features of our model. Residents get more than 1,400 hours of real-time experience in 4 different classroom settings before they get the keys to their own classroom. Every successful candidate earns dual certification and a dual master's in their subject area and special education. And every participant receives sustained on-the-job coaching for 4 years. UTC holds the highest bar for teacher certification in the country, and not every teacher who begins our program gets certified. Even with intensive support, not every promising candidate develops the qualities of a great teacher. We believe it's better that we incur the cost of that discovery than our children. We begin by recruiting diverse, high-achieving, results-oriented individuals. Only 25% of applicants are accepted into our program, and only 77% of our residents go on to become teachers of record in year 2. 40% of departures in the first year are voluntary. The other 60% don't meet our rigorous expectations. UTC's attrition is strategic, intentional, and minimizes disruption to student learning. We're very proud to say that we've had almost 0 attrition during the school year in 3 years in Washington, D.C., and only 2 instances in 3 years in Baltimore. That's an extraordinary rate for new teachers in these challenging districts. Participants who meet our bar for practice and coursework earn a master's degree after 2 years, but full permanent certification takes longer. We only approve teachers for full certification after they've proven their effectiveness through student achievement gains and observable classroom practice. It's an intensive process involving multiple measures, but our logic's simple. We believe the best way to guarantee that new teachers will be effective is to show that they have been effective. In our experience, at least 3 challenges should be addressed in order to ensure a great teacher every time for every student. We would encourage policy leaders at all levels to focus on broadening access to existing federal dollars. Open up the routing of funds intended for K-12 systems by allowing districts to partner with institutions of higher ed and innovative organizations. Opening up access with quality control safeguards focused on outputs will result in stronger partnerships for K-12 school systems to improve teacher preparation. Next, encouraging environments at the state level that are more hospitable to alternative cert providers. In order to foster more innovation in all markets, encourage states to permit alt-cert providers to enter the teacher prep market. The best legislation will support and not encumber existing innovation while simultaneously encouraging new innovation. Last, spotlighting what works. As I heard from a colleague up here on the panel, because we haven't any time to waste, innovation and practice across the sector should be accompanied by an assessment of what works and what doesn't. The federal government can be a valuable resource here in evaluating and providing information on effective practice, partnership models, and design to inform the entire sector and eliminate duplication of efforts. Thank you for the opportunity to testify about our model, and I look forward to fielding questions, if any, on this important topic.
Well, thank you, Ms. Hall. Thank you all. We'll now proceed to member questions.